Ethan had always been curious. That curiosity had driven him from Earth to the farthest edges of known space. Hopping from one bustling spaceport to another, cataloging the most unusual planets and societies for the Interstellar Exploration Council. He loved studying alien customs and technology, but he had one fatal flaw. He was clumsy, easily distracted, and sometimes a little too confident in his assumptions. It was this combination that led him to what would become the strangest day of his life. He was walking through a narrow corridor of a vibrant, overcrowded spaceport on the planet Valar 3. The air was filled with the hum of hovering transport pods, soft music from unknown instruments, and the chatter of hundreds of alien voices. Each species seemed more remarkable than the last. There were beings with translucent skin that glowed faintly from within, some with multiple limbs moving gracefully, and others with eyes that shimmered like tiny galaxies. Ethan's attention was caught by a building decorated with ribbons of shifting light and floating crystalline ornaments. The entrance glowed warmly, and he assumed it was some sort of exhibition hall. "Perfect," he muttered under his breath. "Maybe I'll find something unique for the council to study." Without a second thought, he stepped inside. Immediately, he realized something was off. The space inside was vast and elegant, filled with hundreds of women, each distinctly alien, wearing ceremonial attire that shimmered in the light. They were talking quietly in melodic voices that Ethan didn't understand. Yet the air felt calm and welcoming. He froze near the entrance, hoping no one would notice him. A tall, regal-looking alien approached. She had pale lavender skin that seemed to glow, and her eyes were deep pools of gold. She smiled politely and handed him a piece of clothing that seemed ceremonial, with intricate patterns and floating threads of light. "For you," she said in a voice translated by the universal translator in his suit. "It is tradition for all who enter." Ethan blinked. Thank you," he said hesitantly. He had no idea what he was getting himself into, but he didn't want to seem rude. The alien woman gestured for him to put it on, and though awkwardly, he did. The fabric felt alive, almost humming against his skin, and he could see faint patterns moving across it as he adjusted the garment. Suddenly, the crowd's chatter quieted. Ethan looked up and saw a figure standing at the center of the hall. She was breathtaking. Bioluminescent patterns moved across her body in mesmerizing waves, and her ceremonial attire sparkled like a nebula in motion. She was the bride. Ethan's stomach dropped as he realized what was happening. He had accidentally walked into an actual wedding, and he was the only male in the room. Panic rose in him, but it was mixed with fascination. He had never seen a ceremony like this before. The elder who seemed to officiate the event spoke, his voice melodic and strangely powerful. The universal translator in Ethan's suit converted it. "Welcome, honored guests. Today we celebrate the union of two souls in the presence of all witnesses. May their bond shine across the stars." Ethan's heart thumped wildly. He tried to step back, thinking he could quietly leave, but several guests had already noticed him. Their expressions were curious, not hostile. Some tilted their heads in friendly gestures. One of the bride's attendants, a tall, armored alien woman with translucent wings, approached Ethan. She smiled gently and gestured for him to stay. "Wait," Ethan began, but the words failed him. The elder continued. "All present are considered witnesses. Each holds a token to show support and blessing for the union. You, stranger, have been given the token as well." Ethan looked down. In his hand, the ceremonial token glowed softly. He had no idea what it meant, but he held it anyway. The crowd began to hum, a low, vibrating melody that filled the room. Ethan realized the air itself seemed to respond to the sound, the floating decorations shifting in rhythm. He was led to a position near the bride. She studied him carefully, her golden eyes wide and curious. Despite his panic, Ethan felt an odd sense of calm wash over him. This was unlike any human gathering he had ever attended. There was no hostility, no threat, just an overwhelming feeling of inclusion, even if he didn't fully understand why he was there. As the ceremony progressed, Ethan witnessed customs he could barely comprehend. Guests used telepathic pulses to communicate briefly with the bride, their expressions soft and joyful. He watched floating bouquets that hovered above their heads, their petals moving like fish in a gentle current. Lights danced across the room, shifting colors in time with the melodic hum. He realized these aliens had mastered an art of sensory harmony that humans could hardly imagine. At one point, the elder gestured to Ethan. "You are invited to participate in the dance," he said. Panic surged through him again. Ethan's body stiffened. "Dance? Me? I don't know how." The bride smiled, and for a moment her glowing patterns flickered in what he assumed was amusement. She held out her hand. "Do not fear," the universal translator rendered her voice. "This is a gesture of unity. Follow my lead." Ethan hesitated but took her hand. Her touch was surprisingly warm, and the patterns on her skin pulsed gently against his palm. She led him in a slow, flowing movement that matched the hum of the room. Each step felt guided, as if the music and light itself were instructing him. Ethan stumbled once or twice, but the guests laughed gently, not mockingly, and corrected his stance with polite gestures. As he moved, he began to notice subtleties he had missed before. The ritual was not just a celebration of love. It was a communal bond. Each guest's presence, each gesture, was a part of a living network that strengthened the couple's union. Ethan realized that by participating, even awkwardly, he was contributing to this ancient practice. After several minutes of dancing, the elder called for stillness. Ethan, slightly out of breath, watched as the bride stepped forward to speak. The universal translator conveyed her words. "Today all present bear witness. Each of you from near and far carries the promise of trust, respect, and unity. Let the bond shine eternal." Ethan clutched the token in his hand, feeling its warmth. He had no idea how he had ended up here, and yet, strangely, he felt honored. He looked around and saw smiles directed at him, curious eyes that were not judging but welcoming. Despite being the only male present, he felt included in something far greater than himself. The ceremony concluded with a ritual of lights and energy. Guests raised their hands, sending shimmering pulses across the room. Ethan hesitated but lifted his hand as instructed. The pulse flowed through him, warm and gentle, connecting him to the crowd. He felt a strange sense of unity, as if he had become a part of their collective consciousness, if only for a moment. By the time the ceremony ended, Ethan was exhausted, but exhilarated. The bride approached him once more, her glow softening. "You are brave," she said, her voice clear and calm. "Few would step into the unknown and remain open." Ethan laughed nervously. I didn't mean to intrude. I thought it was an exhibit." She tilted her head, amused. "Perhaps it is in a way. An exhibit of trust, courage, and openness. You have learned more today than many do in a lifetime." The guests began to depart slowly, their chatter resuming, the room returning to a quieter rhythm. Ethan followed, still clutching the token, feeling both out of place and strangely at home. He had walked into an alien wedding by accident, but he left with a story that no human, and perhaps no alien, would ever forget. As he exited the building, he glanced back one last time. The bride's eyes met his, and a faint glow passed between them, like a shared secret. Ethan smiled, realizing that even in the vast expanse of space, human curiosity and courage could find a place, even among 1,000 alien women in a wedding he never meant to attend. And for the first time in a long while, he wondered not about what he had seen, but about what he might learn next. Ethan could hardly believe he had survived the first part of the alien wedding. What had started as an accidental intrusion had transformed into an experience that left him both awed and nervous. He had expected confusion, embarrassment, or even anger from the guests, but instead, he found curiosity, kindness, and a deep sense of inclusion that no human ceremony had ever offered him. As he followed the departing guests toward a side chamber, the bride approached again, her glow now softer and calmer. "You have done well," she said, her golden eyes observing him with what felt like genuine interest. "Many would have fled. Few remain present with openness and respect. That is the first step to understanding our ways." Ethan tried to compose himself. I'm honored," he said. "I really didn't mean to intrude. I wanted to learn," she nodded. "And learn you shall. But now comes the part of the ceremony where all guests contribute not just as witnesses, but as participants in the union's strength." He looked around and saw that the room was filled with alien women of various species, all radiating energy and calm authority. Some hovered slightly above the ground, others moved with delicate precision, and a few were armored in ceremonial gear that shimmered in patterns of light. Ethan could sense the focus of their energy. It was as if the air itself hummed with anticipation. One of the attendants, a tall, graceful woman with skin like liquid silver, approached him and spoke slowly so he could understand. You will be asked to assist in a ritual task. Fear is natural, but hesitation diminishes its meaning. Follow the bride's lead. Ethan swallowed hard, glancing at the glowing patterns on the bride's skin. He could feel a warmth emanating from her, and it seemed to encourage him. I'll try, he said, almost whispering. The ritual began with the placement of light spheres along the perimeter of the chamber. Each guest held a sphere, which hovered above their palms and radiated soft colors. Ethan was handed one as well. The moment he touched it, a gentle pulse ran through his fingers. The sphere seemed alive, responsive to his emotions, reflecting his uncertainty with subtle flickers of color. Do not fight it, the bride said softly. The sphere responds to openness, trust, and clarity. Let it flow through you. Ethan focused, unsure how to proceed. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that he was here to observe and learn, not to impress. Slowly, the sphere's color shifted from hesitant blue to a calm, steady green. A ripple of acknowledgement passed through the room. He realized that the sphere was a reflection not just of him, but of his connection to the collective energy of the guests. Once all spheres were glowing steadily, the bride guided Ethan to a central platform. She placed her hands near his, and the spheres floated between them, forming a luminous bridge of light. This represents trust shared, she explained. By bridging our energies, we acknowledge acceptance and support. Ethan felt the warmth of the spheres spread through him, filling him with a sense of harmony he had never experienced. He moved cautiously, adjusting his stance to match hers. The spheres pulsed in rhythm with their motions, creating a visual dance of light. For a moment, he forgot his fear, forgetting that he was the only human present. He was no longer an outsider. He was part of the ritual, a contributor to its beauty. As the movement ended, the spheres gently settled, their glow softening but remaining luminous. The guests clapped softly, not with hands but through gentle pulses of energy that resonated through the room. Ethan felt a vibration in his chest, a sense of approval and connection that was hard to describe. The bride smiled, her patterns shifting into a gentle spiral. You have embraced the unknown with courage. That is the most honorable gift you could give. After a brief pause, the elder called for the final unity. This part of the ceremony was the climax, where the symbolic union of the bride was solidified with the acknowledgement of all guests. Ethan's role was simple yet significant. He would place his token, the one he had received at the beginning, on a ceremonial pedestal. He approached the pedestal carefully, aware of every eye upon him. The bride gestured for him to place the token. His hand trembled slightly, but he set it down. The moment the token touched the pedestal, a wave of light surged outward, illuminating every corner of the chamber. The spheres all pulsed in response, casting intricate patterns on the walls and ceiling. The entire room seemed to breathe, alive with energy, as if recognizing his contribution. The bride stepped forward and placed her hand above the token. Light flowed from her skin into it, mingling with the energy of the spheres. Ethan watched in awe, understanding that what he had thought was a simple wedding had layers of symbolism, unity, and interconnection far beyond human comprehension. It was not just about a couple. It was about the strength of a community, the trust between strangers, and the power of acceptance. When the light faded, the bride turned to Ethan, her expression softer now. You have honored us, human, not with strength or skill, but with presence and willingness to learn. That is far more valuable than most could offer. Ethan smiled, feeling a mix of relief and pride. I never expected to be part of this, he said. I thought I was just a visitor. You are more than that, she said. In our ceremonies, one does not merely witness. One becomes part of the story. You have chosen to step into the story willingly. The remainder of the afternoon was filled with quiet celebrations. The guests shared stories, exchanging thoughts with Ethan through gestures, energy pulses, and translated words. He learned about the cultural significance of the wedding, the history of the bride, and the ways her people honored bonds not only of love but of trust, cooperation, and respect. The alien women were fascinated by humans, and Ethan answered their questions openly, sharing simple details about Earth and human customs. His honesty and curiosity earned their admiration. Toward the end, the bride led Ethan aside. You have learned much today, she said. Yet there is one final lesson. It is not enough to observe and participate. You must carry the experience beyond this room, beyond this planet, to remind others that courage, respect, and openness are universal. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility mixed with a strange warmth. "I will," he said sincerely. The bride smiled, and for a fleeting moment her patterns shimmered like stars collapsing and rebirthing in a nebula. "Then you are ready to return to your world, human. But remember, our connection remains. The universe is vast, yet those willing to embrace it may find themselves part of something greater than themselves." As the guests began to depart, Ethan felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere, as if the room itself was acknowledging his presence. He realized that he had not only witnessed a wedding, but had also been entrusted with a gift, the understanding that even a human could belong, even in a place and among beings so different from his own. Finally, he walked out of the ceremonial hall into the crowded corridor of the spaceport. The sun of Valar III cast long shadows, and the colors of the alien city shimmered like liquid gemstones. Ethan held the token in his hand, reflecting on what had happened. He thought about the bride, her attendants, and all the alien women who had accepted him, laughed with him, and guided him through rituals he could never have imagined. As he made his way back to his exploration vessel, he realized something profound. Human courage, curiosity, and openness could bridge the most impossible gaps. He had entered by accident, but he was leaving transformed. A simple willingness to step forward had allowed him to participate in something far larger than himself. Ethan smiled, looking up at the twin suns setting on Valar III. The galaxy was full of mysteries, and he had been reminded that there was no limit to what humans could learn and how far they could belong, if they dared to embrace the unknown. And with that, he set course for the next adventure, knowing that he would carry the memory of the alien wedding, the bride and the 1,000 women who had welcomed him, forever in his heart. The universe had opened a door to him, and he intended to walk through it with courage, curiosity, and respect.